I like was trying to test it out, and I was just like, "Oh, pictures look really. I look really good with this light. If you got a ring light and you don't look good in it, man, I don't know what to tell you,
I know.
honestly."
It's like, dude.
Oh my gosh, see Vanessa. See the way she twerk like a dancer.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're here on SocietyROW TV. I'm Ryan Sullivan, one of your hosts. I'm also here with Tatiana, my co-host as well. And our guest today is Smurf Brown. He's an actor, voice actor, director. He's, within all of those fields. So I really appreciate you being here today, Smurf. And it's really, really nice to interview you, man. It's going to be a great interview.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. It's gonna be
Any
fun.
Anytime, man. Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be fun. So, I don't know when, or like if you've been like doing like I don't know acting other than voice acting, like
Mhm.
acting like with people, but because I know like pandemic happened and things like that. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
when was your you can choose whether this is acting on stage or acting in an acting capacity or voice acting. But when was your last time? Whether it was yesterday recording a voiceover or last month, I don't know. But when was your last time doing what you do, like in your zone? Can you talk about that?
I mean, I do this every day, man. Look, as far as like auditions, whatever it is, I'm always acting, I'm always studying. But as far as like anything on stage, I haven't done on stage probably since like fourth grade, like a fourth grade play. I think I played like a
Yeah.
chef for something with like a king and making some like special cookies, and it was only like four of us that were selected to actually like participate in that play, and I got picked for that, and I think that was the last like on stage acting I've done, and then how I got into voice acting, I actually had a podcast with my frat brother and my best friend, and we would go in there and we would just like improv stuff. Like we would talk about topics, but we would kind of burst out into like little skits, just kind of like improv, and I would do like random little voices like here and there. And there was this guy in Atlanta, well, actually Columbus, Georgia, but this guy that owns this business called the Ignorant Noodle, and he heard my voice and he messaged us on Instagram. He's like, that Smurf guy, no offense, I'm writing a kid's cartoon, but I want him to like voice a kid because he has like a young sounding voice. And I actually was on the Instagram and I was like, oh, this is big time. I was pretending to be like the manager on the actual like Instagram, and I was just like, yo, yeah, I'll definitely get in contact with Smurf and let him know all along it's me. I'm trying to pretend because I thought it
It's
was
that come
so
up
big
though. That's
time.
the come
Yeah.
up.
And he sent me a script and I ended up recording, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and it just, when you like do something and it just feels right, and that's kind of what it was. So I started looking into more stuff, kind of going into auditions. The next role I actually got, I was trying to audition for like one of the side characters because I was like, this is new. I don't really know what I'm doing. I haven't acted since the fourth grade. I'm in my 20s. So I probably should start out with something small. Um, and this was for a guy, and he's in Atlanta as well. And he was working on a cartoon, and he gave me the lead role. And I was so I was so nervous because it's like he was explaining how much he loved that character. It was a character he had worked on for years. He's like, yeah, this character means a lot. I hope you can bring, you know, justice and really bring
All
him to
that
life.
pressure was on you right there. Like
Yeah,
all the
and I was just like, the only other thing I've done is just like this podcast and that one cartoon, and I was so nervous at that point. I was like, maybe I should just tell him just to give me a smaller role. And shout out to my girlfriend, my queen. She was just like, don't you not do this. You better do this.
Right.
And she went with me to the studio. I didn't have this set up. I was going to this studio where we recorded the podcast, and I booked the little studio time, and I went into a little podcast room. I told the front like desk, like, yo, if you hear somebody screaming, it's just me reading lines. And she sat in there with me through that whole first episode because I was just so nervous. And after I recorded that first episode, it got easier and easier. But definitely shout out to her because I definitely wouldn't have done it if she did not like talk me into doing it and forcing me to do it, and seeing like hey, you're built for this. You're meant to do this. So definitely shout out to her for that.
Right. Was that like your longest running role that you had, or
um
something that like you've spent way more time on, or?
I f- I think it probably was.
Mhm.
So when we recorded like 2 seasons worth
Okay.
of content for it. I have been working with some other writers. I was working with this guy in the UK on one of his podcasts, and he had like a 6 episode series. And I worked with him on that. And then he had a lot of other roles. So I want to say from it was maybe like 5 or 6 months of just working on different roles and different shows with him. Eventually got into directing uh, with him as well for this series called That Love Podcast, and you can find it on Spotify and everything like that. It was written by this guy named Joao Nasita, and he's based out of London. And which was it was different for me because I'm not like a romance comedy guy. I don't really watch romance, but it was definitely something that brought me outside my comfort zone. Um, and it's almost kind of like a voice acting boot camp internship because there was a lot of different roles, a lot of different characters I had to play, and over like 6 month or so span of time, just working on different projects with him, and then going into directing and directing different episodes. So I definitely had a lot of growth um, from there. So as far as projects, that first lead character was the longest for just one show. But as far as someone I'm working with, if you look for that Love podcast overall as a whole, that's probably the longest, I guess, project or series that I was a part of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's I like how you just fell into this. I it's similar for me. I just applied for a voice acting job on like one of the freelance websites like Upwork. That's
Yeah.
where I used to get a lot of my work from, and I just got one for $80 and it like changed. I was so happy, man. Like I was so because I had no idea it was possible.
Yeah.
But so I like relate to your come up, man. Do you see yourself continuing in the voice acting lane, or would you like to? I know you said you haven't been on stage since like fourth grade, but
Yeah.
do you have now that you're in the voice acting, or like, oh man, maybe I can act too, or go or do film or write, or I know you've been writing a little bit maybe too, but do you see yourself going in other verticals within that?
Um, yeah, if the opportunity presents itself. I mean, I really do love the voiceover stuff. I mean, right now, like I could wake up at 6 in the morning and record in my pajamas if I want to, and get send off recordings to whoever. It's really fun, especially because I mean I'm a huge fan of animation. Like I'm a cartoon nerd like till this day, and so being able to voice characters that are animated, whether it's you know uh, like a show, or if it's like for video games or something like that. um it's fun. I really do enjoy it. As far as like on screen acting or on stage acting, again, if the opportunity presents itself, I'm not going to turn it down because acting is acting. At the end of the day, you're bringing a story to life. um but definitely the voiceover is definitely my passion. More so, it's something I definitely want to do long term because it doesn't matter what you look like. I can be 80 years old, and if I can do the voice for like a 20-year-old, then it still
Right.
As long as
works.
you could get the job done, right? Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
So like, what do you do to like when you first research a role, like when you approach a role?
um Really just kind of analyzing the script. I'll read the whole thing through, and then I try to put myself in the character's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
um as far as trying to figure out what emotions they would really be feeling in this situation. How would I feel in this situation? Or how would somebody else feel in this situation? Really trying to get into their psyche and their mind. And that just kind of comes from I mean, just reading it and just trying to pick up the tone and everything from the script and just kind of analyzing it from there. That's probably the biggest thing I'll do. And if I get the opportunity to, because sometimes you'll get a script like 5 minutes before you're actually supposed to record it, so you don't get a lot of time to kind of go through it if you
Right.
like if you need to. It's a lot of cold reads, so you kind of have to be quick on the spot with it. But if I get an opportunity to read the script, I try to read it 2 or 3 times. The first time just to get the story, the second time kind of act everything out aloud, record myself to hear myself,
Hmm.
and then go back and try to tweak it and bring more energy or bring more emotion or whatever it is that's necessary to make the story sound believable, entertaining, and make it come to life.
Right. Makes sense.
Is there a certain? Oh, sorry, Tatiana.
No,
What were you
you're
gonna say? I'm sorry.
good.
No, I'm too. I got too many questions for Smurf Brown. Too anxious or too hyped for this interview right now. So, do you have to get into like different like accents? Like, do you have to change your voice for roles, or is it, or a lot of the roles like, hey, we want your voice how it is right now, or do you find yourself having to change it?
um, it depends on the role. It depends on the role. The first two roles that I actually booked, it was just my voice. I think I may have taken it up like maybe an octave or two, um, but it was just like my natural speaking voice. Depending on the character, there was actually something that came out about a month ago. It's an audiobook um, with Cerebral Cinema, and for this, they cast different actors to play different roles versus having one person narrate the entire thing. And for that, I played an elf. So for that one, like I took my voice up really high, and he had like a little bit of a British accent. So for that one, I had to switch it up a little bit and kind of get like a little gravelly voice and talk like this and try to figure out how I'm supposed to pronounce certain things and try to get more so into the character and like kind of get the everything that's supposed to come with like a little elf that's kind of like a swindler. And if y'all want to check it out, I mean, I'm plugging a bunch of stuff, but it's called Boss Whammy Jinx. And it's actually like the credit is actually under like my government name. So if you see it, it's under the credits under Marcus Brown, which is my government name. But um, it it definitely it was definitely something where for I think a day or two, I was just talking like that, like I was calling calling my girlfriend, speaking in a little elfish voice, and she's like, "I just want my boyfriend back. Why are you talking like I'm tired of this." But I
You're
mean,
like, babe, I'm working right now. I'm
yeah,
working. Come on.
exactly. I mean, if you call my friends, my family, cousins, my girlfriend, like I'm always calling, working on some other voice, and I'll just talk like that. Like that's how I started practicing like my voices is, hey, I'm gonna just call you and I'm just gonna talk however. And shout outs to them because I know they probably get sick of it if I'm calling or if they call me and okay, this isn't Smurf that picked up. This who is this? Who am I talking to now? And it's
You
Right.
could
just
prank some people for real with that. You
yeah,
can do some serious pranks with that, probably.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's fun and I mean I try to practice because I try to find voices that don't sound like my voice as much. Like my goal is to have something that sounds completely different than
Mhm.
how I speak because to me, I mean, it's just fun to do that and I just kind of bring out a different wacky character. So,
Right. So how did you like find out that you can do voices? Like I knew, like I know you said someone discovered you, so that's why
mhm.
you got into acting. But how did you even know like you could do that? Like you like to make people laugh, and then people are like, "Oh, you actually sound like somebody." Like you could probably do that.
um, it's a little bit of that, just joking around all the time. Like especially in my immediate family, I'm the clown. I'm going to joke. I'm going to make fun of everybody, poke fun at somebody, and it was just kind of just like playing with my voice, and not even a situation where like, oh, you sound just like so and so. It's just I'm just gonna do this just cause and mock you and um I mean it just became a voice after that. Like everybody in your life can be an inspiration for a voice. Even a bad impression can be a voice for something.
Right.
Um because you never know what could be used. Somebody's gonna like it. So it was just kind of playing around all the time, being a goofball. And
Right.
that I mean that's kind of got me to where I am now, just playing and just like honestly just being a big kid.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great.
I know that I definitely couldn't answer this question, so I'm wondering if you can answer it. But do
Mm.
you know of any like well first more specific, like do you have any mentors or like inspirations when it comes to this? Like I can't name any famous voice actor people that I looked up the podcasters. That's where
Yeah.
like I definitely got that from podcasters. But like for you, is there any mentors or inspiration?
Um yeah, I would say a few. The more I started kind of becoming familiar with voice acting, the more I started doing my research. Um the biggest like icon, like the Michael Jordan of this is probably Mel Blanc, and he did like the voice for Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, um Barney Rubble, I believe, Captain Caveman, pretty much all the Looney Tunes. He was the voice of them, and they call him like the man of a thousand voices. I would say Phil Lamar is another guy. He did like Samurai Jack, Green Lantern off Justice League. Um, Rob Paulson is another guy. He did like Pinky from Pinky and the Brain. He did Yakko from Animaniacs. And then as far as just acting in general, because again, it's acting.
Act-
So of course, like Denzel, Leonardo DiCaprio, Samuel Jackson. Um, and then I even like look at comics, and so like my favorite comedian is Dave Chappelle. And so just like looking at
Good one.
because everything is I feel like can play a role, and I can try to take everything from everybody and try to
It's art,
mesh it into
inspiration.
what it is that I do. So all of those guys definitely are inspirations. And I know I'm leaving people out. Like there's people like Steve Bloom, um, Chris Sabat, if you've seen Dragon Ball Z, like he does Vegeta and Piccolo, and I mean there's so many people once you really get into it, and it's surprising to see all the different voices that they do.
Do you have any like warm up? Do you warm your voice up?
Hmm. I do. It's kind of like singing exercises. So just kind of going up and down the scale. I'm not the best singer, but it's just like da 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 da, just like doing those for maybe like 5 minutes. I also invested into like these little singing straws. And if you go on YouTube and you type in like singing straw, they have like exercises that you can use to warm up your voice. Um, that's the main thing I do is just that, and then making sure like I don't eat any dairy before recording because dairy kind of like messes up your
Uh,
vocal cords.
it's
And
like phlegm or yeah.
yeah, it like puts like all this phlegm and stuff in your
Mm.
throat. So they always tell you like don't eat any like cheese or yogurt or like milk or anything like right before a recording session because your range is probably not going to be there, and you're going to have that stuff in your throat that's going to make you sound kind of weird. So
Right.
those are kind of the things I do. And then try to drink like tea. There's this tea called throat coat tea, and that helps kind of get any junk out your throat as well. So
Awesome. Do you have like any like your top three favorite voices that you do that you can just like do at any point?
um I was yeah, I would say there's a few that I've been working on
Mhm.
that I'm trying to do just to like to pull like out my hat at any time. Um there's this one character. He's kind of like a little meek character, and I call him Mr. Green,
Mhm.
which I tried to pull inspiration from Mike Tyson, and I don't know where else. but he just kind of talks like this. He's like a little guy, and but he was bullied back in school, but he's going to the gym, and he's learning to fight, so he gives him a left, a right, and an uppercut. And so that's Mr. Green. Um, the other character, I'm actually working on like this old lady that smokes, and her son is like 40 years old that like lives at home with her.
Mhm.
Haven't came up with a name for her yet, but let me see if I can pull her out. So Joey, you're 45 years old and you still stay at home, and it's fine, but you really need to find you a nice little girl. I mean, I'm 97 at this point and I want some grandkids. I want to be able to see them. So that's what you need to do, Joey. It's fine that you're a mama's boy, but give me some damn grandkids, okay? Uh, I have her, and then is this other little character that that I kind of use for um just like random random stuff. Uh the first time I use them, I put them on like an emoji for a tiger,
Mhm.
and he was more so kind of like kind of a mix and an inspiration from Bugs Bunny, but he was very much about his money. He wanted his money, and he wanted everybody to pay him on time. He didn't want any issues, any problems. And but this is one character that I try to work on every day. Is when I get a chance to, and try not to make it sound too much like some of the other ones. Um, and then I've been working on this little kid voice as well. Um, which the little kid voice is weird, but like when I want to try to go to like kindergarten for the first time, I just want to make sure that everybody shares the red crayons with me. So
No,
That's great.
so I try
Yeah.
I
man.
try to work on different ones, and I try not to, I try to like do different ones every day, and I try not to make them sound like me, and I try not to make them sound too much like other characters as well. But sometimes you can take one character and then either raise the octave or lower the octave or add like some graveliness to it, and it's like a completely different character, even though it's in the same, like it's kind of like the same voice.
Mhm.
um but like if you're watching a cartoon, you don't really know that unless you're really paying attention to it and you really have like your ear trained for it.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like certain characters you need like trigger words to try to like get into the character to get the voice. Like there's certain things that maybe a saying or something that helps sometimes, especially if you're doing like two different characters back and forth and you're trying to distinguish between them.
Mhm.
um so one thing is just like trying to find like a certain trigger word to, okay, now I've got the character, because sometimes it's like I'll start off with one, and what I'm working at is trying to make sure I keep that character sounding like that for the duration of whatever I need to record it for, without either slipping back into my voice or like a different voice, just make them sound consistent throughout. But that's, I mean, just working at it day by day, working on characters day by day, just to try to get better at it. And then accents is just really kind of paying attention and listening. Like I've been trying to work on a Greek accent, which is a lot more difficult because you don't really hear, at
Right.
least at least where I am, I don't hear a Greek accent ever. So
Yeah.
I was looking up like interviews with Giannis Antetokounmpo to try to hear how he sounds, or like YouTube and stuff, and trying to like work on that. But it's accents are accents can be tough. Accents can be tough. You have to really like study like how they pronounce everything, the cadence, all of that stuff. So
Yeah, definitely.
I'm impressed, man. I'm impressed. If we had, if we had a whole hour or 2 hours, man, I'd keep going. I'll just go back and forth on some. Hey, can you do this one? Can you do that? I bet that's probably what people do with you all the time. But they want you to like do
Sometimes.
some kind of voice on the spot, you know.
Yeah, sometimes.
But yeah. Well, I
Definitely.
appreciate you doing this. Appreciate your time, and Tatiana as well. Thanks for being here.
Thank
And
y'all.
it's been
Thanks for
Smurf Brown on Society Row TV. And where can
Yes, sir.
people find you on there before we wrap it up?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Smurf Brown Voices, and then you can find me on Twitter at Smurf Brown Voice, and you can find me on Facebook at Smurf Brown Voices as well. And if you need to email me, it's smurfbrownvoices@gmail.com.
All right. So if you all got to roll, you got to run it by this guy. He's the guy.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much, Smurf. I really appreciate
Thank
this,
y'all.
man. This was a lot of fun. And thank you on behalf
Definitely.
of Society Row TV. This is Sully with my co-host Tatiana, and on today's episode, Smurf Brown. Thank you everybody for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.